Welcome to Thursday, October 10th, 2024. Well, it's going to be like watching molasses. It's going to be slow, but a slow collapse of the blocking pattern across North America is starting to commence. Slowly but surely, about the speed of those hot air balloons. Not going to happen very quickly, but it will. In the most part, it's going to be warm, breezy, and dry. Some high-level, mid-level clouds will be coming on through. As we're going to see, as we'll show you in the satellite imagery, a little bit of moisture is going to come in, but mainly just producing clouds. But we're setting a pattern in motion now of changes that will lead to bigger changes down the road. In the meantime, we still have a lot of smoky haze from wildfire activity across the Intermountain West and the Western High Plains. And until we see this change in the weather that can bring cool, wet conditions our way, the smoke and haze is still going to come and go across the west. Here's the satellite imagery this morning. Look, there's actually clouds. We have a little bit of cloudiness coming into the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies, and you can see the storminess up here in the eastern and northern Pacific around the Gulf of Alaska and areas off to the west. So we're getting a little bit of weather coming in the form of some mid and high level cloudiness. It's not much, but it's a sign of things that change. So we're going to be looking at the high pressure ridge breaking down. Wanted to show you this. I showed you yesterday the coronal mass ejection and the comet. The coronal mass ejection has triggered a severe geomagnetic storm warning for the next 48 hours. This is a much stronger coronal mass ejection than even the last one. And this G4 means the possibility of Aurora Borealis returning to the region the next couple to maybe 3 nights coming on up. And the comet is working its way around the sun. And what will happen in these coronal mass ejections is literally the tail of the comet can either be blown off or stunted or segmented to some point. So we'll see what happens with that. And this comet going to be making an evening appearance soon in the coming days. We'll talk about more of that tomorrow. When we take a look at the high pressure ridge where we are now, you notice that it's not as amplified at the moment. It's kind of getting beat down a little bit by what's going on in the North Pacific. That's why we're seeing some clouds streaming in. Milton moving off the Florida coast today and moving out to sea, thankfully. Now this is by Saturday. We see a reconsolidation of the low up here in the Gulf of Alaska. So the high pressure ridge is going to kind of get built back up again temporarily. But as we showed you yesterday, there's going to be a push of much cooler air heading into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes in the eastern United States by later in the weekend. While high pressure is still in the west, this low here will produce a little bit of shower activity for Washington and Oregon and Northern California, but it's really not much to really hang your hat on. So we're still kind of not looking at much, but we're seeing things begin to change. It starts first with this trough getting pushed into here and some cooler air spilling down along and east of the divide by Monday and Tuesday. There it is. Much colder air spills in while the heat continues in the west. So your day-to-day weather changes through the weekend are still, you're not going to really notice anything other than an increase in mid and high level cloudiness. Then things start to change after that. Here's your precipitation forecast through Tuesday. So, other than that little shower activity here along the west of the Cascades, showers in southern Canada, we're Virga here, we're just not looking at much of anything. However, by the end of next week, so a week from today, 17th of October, this high pressure begins to get established in the eastern Pacific. We still have these lows up here, but notice it's getting segmented a little bit and not nearly as intense. And this low, this is going to end up being a strong Pacific cold front that could do a couple of things. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But the timing is still around that 17th and 18th of this strong cold front coming in. The air with this front is going to come from up here, which means much colder, but also have some Pacific influence, some Pacific moisture with it. That's what we want. We want cold, moist Pacific air to get pushed in to change our dry pattern. And as it comes in, the air behind it will be significantly colder, and along the frontal boundary, there's going to be rain and snow as it pushes on in. Notice there's now a high in the south central United States and a high building here. This is the configuration we want. For the west to be colder and wet, we'll want the high to be a little more east and this high a little bit more east to allow room to come in across the western United States. We've mentioned this before to give you a sports analogy. It's a lot like spacing. Anybody that's played basketball, you get 5 players on the floor. Spacing those players is important in having the best defense. And so in this situation, that's the same thing. So we're starting to see that configuration we want. It's not quite there yet. However, by next Friday and into next Saturday, that'll change as it pushes further in. So you notice the highs are beginning to shift east. See that right there? So as long as we get this pattern, and we continue to see it, so our confidence is pretty good we will. By the 17th and 18th, here comes the much colder, moist air. Now, what happens after this? This could just be what we call an open wave front that just continues east into the upper Great Lakes, but spills cold, moist air in behind it. There's also a possibility that this part of the front could break off and become a more consolidated low near the Four Corners region down here. And that would be Friday, Saturday, and next week. But it's too early. It's too early to talk about that. The timing of the change is what we want to talk about. And if we do see this configuration, we have some chances of precipitation. As that low settles on in and the front pushes on through, it's going to drag in much colder air. These are the temperature anomalies by next Friday. So you can see it's a complete reversal from what we have now, but it's going to be a slow walk, a slow motion process to get there. We'll have more on this tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a good Thursday.